Hello there, and you are very welcome to the breakdown on the Racing Post in association with Ladbrokes. My name is Ryle Nugent, and over the next number of weeks I will be your host as we try to navigate our way through what is the wonderful Guinness Six Nations Championship lies ahead of us. It is something that we really look forward to at this time of year. A wonderful time of the year, a wonderful tournament, and we're going to help you find your way through it. With me to do just that, 35 times capped for Ireland, a British and Irish lion, one of Ulster's favourite sons is Mr. Stephen Ferris. Stephen, you're most welcome. Let's go wide before we go narrow. And you look at this championship, and Ireland are the favourites. But in many ways, they're fragile favourites. Is that a fair statement?
I don't think so, Ral. I'd probably disagree with you. And the reason I disagree with you is because last year in the Six Nations, they went to Twickenham and put an English side to the sword in their own back garden. And to have the confidence to be able to do that, to win a Grand Slam, I think you've got to have a lot of confidence coming into this Six Nations. To say that they're fragile, I don't think so. Obviously off the back of a huge win against the All Blacks, and I think rightly so, they are huge favourites for the Guinness Six Nations this year. Okay,
well, when I say fragile favourites, I mean it isn't beyond the bounds of possibility that England can beat them. It isn't beyond the bounds of possibility that they could go to the Millennium Stadium at the end of this tournament and be beaten by the Welsh. And in that case, and as it always is in the Six Nations, it's likely to be a very tight affair.
Absolutely. It's international rugby, it's test rugby. Any team on their day can beat one another. But the Irish lads have a proud record at home. England haven't travelled well to Dublin in the last number of years. And because it's that first game up, everything matters. Everything matters. If you lose that first game, it's an uphill struggle the whole way. So, you know, there's so much riding on it for both Ireland and England. And just to give England a bit of kudos here, you know, they come with a very physical, powerful team. And, you know, Ireland won't be taking them lightly.
We'll get to that specific match in a moment, but all the coaches always talk in the Six Nations, and I'm sure you heard it many times when you were playing, momentum, momentum, and then momentum. How real is that in this Six Nations?
It's so real, Ral, because if you turn back the clock in 2009, when we won the Grand Slam with Ireland, Brian O'Driscoll led us to victory in Millennium Stadium. Who knows, it might be the Millennium Stadium again this year if Ireland are on for that Grand Slam. It's all about building week in, week out. You can't look, the players themselves can't look further ahead. Yes, the coaches might, because they'll be preparing for tactics throughout the tournament. But it's all about this match. It's all about beating England on Saturday. When, you know, France play Wales, it's all about that match. And when Scotland play Italy, it's all about that match.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of the other contenders here. Wales, for example, through November with a clean sweep. Gatland at the helm. He knows his players inside out. It's his last Six Nations Championship. What are you expecting from them?
Well, I've worked under Warren Gatland with the 2009 British and Irish Lions. I know what he's all about. He's a winner. He's got a great record with Wales. Coming off the back of that November series, they'll have a lot of confidence also. Yes, the Scarlets might not be playing the best rugby this season. They've been off form, but when they seem to come together as a unit, when they're playing for the national team, they seem to galvanise together and they get the best out of one another. What I'm expecting from this Wales side, the same thing we always get: passion, heart, endeavour. And, you know, they're always in the game come the end.
Yeah, and if Europe isn't, and the performance of the clubs in Europe isn't really a form guide for Wales, and it traditionally hasn't been, maybe it is for Scotland, because for the first time ever they have both Edinburgh and Glasgow in the quarterfinals of the Champions Cup. That's got to give them a lift, and people are talking about them. I don't know if in a convincing way of winning the Six Nations, but definitively having a big impact in this Six Nations.
I think they'll have a huge impact. You just look at their players, and Edinburgh, probably one of the informed teams in Europe. Obviously have Munster to deal with, that's a different story. Glasgow on their day can beat absolutely anyone. So when you bring those two teams together, the Edinburgh front row seem to be pretty solid. VP Nell in there, locking down that scrum. And, you know, the stardust of Finn Russell and Hogg at full back. You know, you just have guys in there that on their day can break down any team. So to look at this Scottish team, I think they've got so much potential. Although over the last number of years, they've been built up. And when it comes to those crunch games, they seem to falter. Will it happen this year?
Let's move to France. and solve this problem to me. What has happened to France? Because you look at the quality and the ability, and then you look at the results, and you look at what happened in November against Fiji. No respect to Fiji, but to Fiji, and you wonder where to now.
I would love to be part of that problem with France. I would love to be coaching that group of players. There's so much talent, so much ability. It's about bringing them together. It's about getting them to play with that heart and passion that I talked about Wales playing with.
Do you think that they've stopped caring about playing for the national squad? Is it the coaching staff? What is it? Because this isn't a 1 year or a 2 year or a 3 year transition. This has become something of a significant pattern.
It is. But Test match rugby is fine margins. You look at that last minute drop goal that Johnny Sexton sent over the bar.
Sure.
If France had won that game, we might be sitting here talking a lot differently.
Right, okay.
I just think that, they're not buying into something. It's difficult for us looking from the outside in, but something hasn't been right in French rugby for the last number of years. There's a lot of foreigners playing in the French league. Is that having a rub-on effect to the national team? I believe it is. He's freshening things up, but you have guys in there, Morgan Parra, Wesley Fofana, Louis Pick'n'Molls, guys who've been there, done it, got the t-shirt. And if they're to have any success this year, it's those key guys you're going to have to rely on.
And then finally, the Italians, of course, coached by Conor O'Shea. They start, in many ways, it's been unfair to them, their history in the Six Nations Championship. If they'd come in maybe 5 or 6 years earlier, they would have been a team that would have contended. They've gone through a transition. They've struggled. Can you see any way that they can come out of this championship with anything?
I can't, Ryle. And, that's an honest opinion. You look at the lads like Martin Castrogiovanni that would have been there at the front of the scrum those 4 or 5 years ago that you talk about. Now they don't even have that authority up front anymore. And when you don't have a 9 and 10 that can control a game like Conor Murray or Johnny Sexton or Finn Russell, for Scotland, you're always going to struggle against the big teams. This is huge, pivotal couple of games for Conor O'Shea. I think he's walking a bit of a tightrope at the minute.
Well, he had what rarely happens in rugby union. He had his board come out and support him very publicly when there was a suggestion in the media that he might actually be for the chop before the Rugby World Cup, and that would suggest that it is a very tight rope that he's walking.
It is a tight rope, and I think they'll stick with him until the World Cup. But they got to come out and they got to get at least one result out of the Six Nations. They're a team that's really struggling at the minute, and they're going to struggle big time in the first game kicking off against Scotland. Okay,
we'll get to that in a moment. First, let's have a conversation about France and Wales. Friday night opens it up in Paris. The nighttime games, there's debate about them Friday nights. For me, in Paris and in Cardiff, they really know how to create an atmosphere late at night, and it's a great way to kick off the championship. The question is, can you see France? Have France got an opportunity to pick the Welsh off?
Yes, because I think it's the first game. If this was 2 or 3 games in and France had maybe lost one and, Wales had the upper hand in the couple of games that they played, I would say that Wales would probably go into this game slight favourites. But because it's that first game, Ryle, I just think the French, you see that they're standing in the national anthems with tears in their eyes, and it means a lot to them to play for their national team. So first game up, I think the French, with a few lads who are being brought in to bolster the side, I fancy France, and just because they're at home, because of that passion, and they might catch Wales in the hop.
Interesting to see Bastereau left out of the squad, in his place Ntamack. Potential there, you think, through Parra and Camille Lopez to run the ball and maybe go back to what the French have always been good at, that ability.
Jouet,
absolutely. Can you see it?
I can.
And yet the Welsh have Gatland's made an interesting call to start with. Brings in Anscombe, leaves Biggar on the bench. Cardiff, Williams in at scrum half and leaving Davis on the bench.
Yeah.
That to me is of all the selections, arguably the biggest surprise.
But I think he's picking foreign players. Davies hasn't been great for Scarlets. And Dan Biggar has been playing okay. But Gareth Anscombe, especially in the European Cup and some of the earlier games, he was absolutely fantastic. And he had a good autumn internationals also. So he's picking more on form. He's the big guys in there, the likes of Ken Owens, who's going to become Wales' most capped hooker on Friday night. Big Tom Francis, who's always putting in a shift. So they're rock solid up front. It's whether or not they can break down this flamboyant French team that I think are going to play with a lot of pace. Lopez, suffered a big injury last year for Clermont, but he's back. He's power inside him, and Wesley Fofana also. He's just a box of tricks. So you never know what's going to come, and I think they're a much better outfit when Bastrop isn't playing in the centre.
Yeah, but they're also, in my opinion, mentally fragile. I mean, they have to be mentally
it's
fragile.
Hard to disagree.
It's a statement of the obvious, and you feel if Wales can ride out that first 20 minutes of passion and exuberance from the French and the crowd up and the momentum that they'll try and get, if Wales can somehow pick off 2-3 penalties, and France's discipline at times has let them down badly, you wonder how brittle that mentality of the French. And I can see conversely, you can make a really strong argument for France to win, but you can make a strong argument that Wales get 6-9 points up in that first 20 minutes and France could disappear out the back gate.
I think so, and it's almost inevitable that a Frenchman will receive a yellow card, or there'll be a number of penalties given. And you look at the Irish team over the last couple of years, what has made them so successful? Their discipline. What has got Ulster into the quarterfinal of the European Cup? Their discipline. It's absolutely key at the top of your game. And if France are going to have a good chance in this game, they need to be tactically correct, but also they need to be on the money with the referee. For me, I personally feel that Wales are better coached, but when it comes to ability, that this French team have a number of players that can be very, very dangerous.
Call it for me.
I'm going to go France, and the reason I'm going to go France is because it's that first game, the passion that they're going to come out with. They've got key guys back, and they have a big lump of a heavy pack, Ryle.
Oh yeah. Vahamina on his own.
yeah, probably averaging in at 120 kgs. And I just feel if they can get their noses in front, they'll play with a bit more confidence. But yeah, that's a really tight one to call.
So France for you on that
France
one.
for me, yeah.
Okay, let's move to Scotland and Italy. 2:15 Saturday afternoon. And Italy, if they have had success over the last decade in the Six Nations, it's actually been at Scotland's expense. And you've got to remember that Italy have won there before, so it isn't beyond the bounds of possibility. However, as we've said, a Scottish side that has 2 teams into the Champions Cup, it's the backbone of their team. And you look at it and you think, well, Finn Russell, let's talk about him to start with. Has he matured as a player? 2-3 years ago, people were talking about him as a potential Lion and a Lions out half.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have bought into that. But it's time now, away from the Scottish setup and in France. Has he shown signs of a guy who's maturing, who could control a game?
Yeah, I think maturity is exactly that. One of the first caps I think that he had for Scotland, he got yellow carded, and he walked off the pitch almost smiling with a laugh on his face. And I was sitting watching it on the television, saying, if that was Johnny Sexton walking off the pitch, Joe Smith would be going through him for a shortcut. His mannerisms on the way he went off the pitch, and I think he's matured quite a bit. And going to Racing 92, playing with awesome players, the likes of Simon Zebo, I think has flourished out there also. The brand of rugby that they're playing, I think it's very similar to what Scotland want to play at times. But Scotland can be hit or miss. Fiji last year, very, very tight at half time. And then come out in the second half and they scored 50 points. And that's what they're all about. But I think 1-50, I think Scotland have got this in the bag.
So on the day, you're saying Scotland, but let's just go a little bit wider again in Scotland. Their issue is strength and depth, isn't it? When you look to their bench and you look at Hastings as a replacement, again, just not having that experience, not having that maturity. If anything were to happen to Finn Russell, they could be in some trouble later in the tournament. There's
been a lot of talk about Hastings, and I watched them Glasgow versus Saracens in the European Cup, and I was very disappointed with him. I think he's got a lot more maturing to do, and whether that's just sitting behind Finn Russell and learning week in, week out of what it takes to be at the top. But I would almost feel more confident if Russell went down with an injury, that Stuart Hogg would step into out half and control things and run the show. Or Laidlaw, yeah, exactly. But yeah, strength and depth may be an issue, But you know, you've Lions in there.
Sure.
You've guys who've been there and done it. Hugh Jones, he's been exceptional over the last couple of years. Will he have almost like that second season blues where he might go off the pace slightly? I think it's a big year for him. There was lots of talk about him actually leaving Scotland and going and playing his rugby somewhere else. So a few guys in there, and obviously a big player for me in this Scottish outfit is Blair Kinghorn, playing on the wing. Usually plays full back, plays a good bit for Edinburgh full back. But you know, if there's somebody that's going to score a few tries in this competition, I think that young fella Blair Kinghorn could be that man.
We need to move on, but I can't move on without mentioning the name of Sergio Parise for Italy. He wins his
He's still going
135th international cap.
Wow.
And you consider the talent that the man has. He has been, when people talk about servants to clubs or to country, he has been remarkable for his country, hasn't he?
He has. Somebody who personally I admired when I played against him, and he was around a year or two before me. Like, he's 100 more caps than I had for my country. That's just exceptional. There was talk of him a couple of years ago possibly hanging up the boots in terms of international rugby. But if there's one man you want leading your team, it's Sergio Parise. Not only is he a world-class player, but he's a world-class leader. And I think the Italians, without Sergio Parise, would be a non-contest.
I'm going to say something. I give Italy more of a squeak in this one than you do. Ultimately I don't think they're going to win it, but I think it's going to be a lot tighter.
Why is that, Ralph?
Because I think they have that pack. I think they have a pack. I think they brought Bud in the second row.
Yeah.
Cisse alongside him. Parise's there. Geraldini in the front row. I think they have experience. They tend to get tired. They tend to run out of options as the tournament goes on. But if they have an opportunity to catch anybody on the hop, it's on day one.
Yeah.
Do I think they're going to beat Scotland? No, but I can see it being a little bit closer than anybody has it. So we'll see how that one works out. And of course then we move on to the big one, to the one for everybody really, I think, outside of obviously those that are supporting their own home nations. But you look objectively at Ireland and England and know it's the biggest game of the weekend. Ireland, straight out of the blocks, bit of a surprise to see Robbie Henshaw pull in at full back by Joe Schmidt. Are you surprised?
I am surprised. Rob Kearney, you know, if he's fit, he usually plays. I think after the All Blacks game, he hadn't played much rugby before that game also, and he answered any questions, put everything to bed about the question marks over Rob Kearney. But now Joe is almost like throwing a question mark up once more with the Robbie Henshaw selection. There was mumblings of it during the week.
Sure.
People watch training. You know, journalists watched training, and there was an indication that he was going to play at fullback. When asked the question over the last couple of days, I said Rob Kearney. If he's fit, Rob Kearney. But I believe Rob Kearney is fit. Is it a risk? I don't think so. You know, Robbie Henshaw is a phenomenal player. He's played at Connacht fullback. I think he's maybe played a couple of games at Leinster, and obviously one for Ireland at fullback. So he's got a half-decent kicking game. Is it in the same level as Rob Kearney's? No. He's good up in the air. He's solid, a great defender, a serious engine. So, yeah, there he is.
And you look at that side, and the other, I suppose, questionable one, knowing that both Henderson and Tadhg Beirne were out of the second row, so Toner and Ryan automatically were those going to fill those shirts. It's Van der Fleer at outside half. Sean O'Brien on the bench. I guess with the amount of game time that Seanie's had, that's the right call.
Yeah, I think so. Sean O'Brien is a Joe Schmidt favourite. When he's fit and he's playing at the top of his game, for me, he's in the top 3 best back rows in world rugby, not just Northern Hemisphere rugby. And it's great to see him. He'll be running out with a number 20 jersey on his back. He is such a competitor. And to even have that experience in the squad, I think will be brilliant to have, especially on the bench, guys warming up. He'll be getting into people's ears and making sure that they're thinking the right things before they take the pitch. So it's brilliant just to have Seanie O'Brien on the bench. But for me, this game is pivotal when it comes to 9 and 10 with Murray and Sexton. If those guys can play like they did 12 months ago, then I think Ireland are going to be very difficult to beat. And
then you look at England and what they've done at 9 and 10, and was the question during the week: would Owen Farrell go to 10, or would maybe they go out to 12 and put Ford in?
No.
I think for everybody, Farrell starts at 10, England are a better team.
Yeah, I think they're a much more physical team, and there's been a few question marks over Farrell's tackling over the last year. But you just look at the size and the physicality of this English side. There's been so much talk over the last couple of weeks. Eddie Jones is bringing a side to Dublin to beat Ireland. And for me, in this team selection, it's all about physical power. You know, even the likes of Jack Noel on the bench, you'll see him nipping in around the breakdown, picking lines off 9. Manu Tuolangi hasn't started a test match for England in the Six Nations in 6 years. And, you know, Johnny May, who's just got pace to burn. But it's the big lads up front, Mario Itoje, Cruz.
With that in mind, are you surprised to see Cruz in rather than Launchbury?
Yeah, I am. I was out in New Zealand covering the Lions tour, and you know, he was picked in the first test, and we didn't see too much of him after that. He kind of crumbled slightly, but he's been given another chance. He's packing down alongside Mario Itoje, who's a bit of a physical beast. So maybe he's just in there for his line-out ability to try and challenge the likes of Devon Toner.
So you break this game down, you can break it down anywhere, but I think for many people, the breakdown is where it's going to be won and lost. And I look at that back row, and I look at Wilson and Curry, Vunipola proven at this level. But you look at Wilson, and you look at Curry, and you think O'Mahony, and you think Stander, and you think Van der Fleer. Is that an area that Ireland have an advantage?
I think so. I think they've got the beating of them. When you watch and you know, just look at the 2 team sheets, and you see these 3 names, and then you see Stander, O'Mahony, Van der Fleer. For me, it just stands out so much stronger. This guy over the ball, he's just incredible. He's a tackling machine. He'll make 25 tackles if needs be. Stander, he just keeps going. Everybody talks about those short 1, 2, 3 yard carries, but he's doing the hard work. And O'Mahony, when it comes to the line out, the disruption that he causes, especially defensively, he's fantastic to have in there. So, you know, I think James Ryan, yes, he's a second row, but he carries the ball just as much as the back rowers do, and he's a very important cog in this Ireland team.
When you look at the size of the English pack, and they brought the big guns to town, is it a question of Ireland trying to keep the pace in the game, trying to keep the pace up and move that English pack around?
Yeah, that'll be something that'll be talked about this week. Joe Smith will be talking about keeping hold of possession, going through multi-phase ball, and that's one thing that Ireland are particularly good at, is holding on to that possession. A bit like Leinster, going through 30, 40 phases to win games. You look at Ireland last year against France, going through all those phases, and then one key moment, Johnny Sexton lands it. That's what this team are all about, and they know they're capable of it because they've been there and done it before.
So what will Eddie Jones be doing, and what will he be expecting? What will be his message to his team in order to stop Ireland?
I think ruffling a few fellers, getting in their face, making the breakdown.
Can you see it being niggly?
An absolute mess. Trying to have as many scrums as possible, and you know, slow the game right down, and just be that physical, compromising team that you associate England with. If they can do that and put Ireland off their game, then there's certainly a chance.
Okay, got to call it though.
Well, I got to go Ireland. Of course, they're the favourites for the tournament. They're at home. They've got a lot of their key men playing. They're maybe only missing 1 or 2. So for me, Ireland. And how many points? I think it'll be a tight enough game, maybe 7 points, the difference.
Okay, so for Stephen Ferris, it's Ireland, it's Scotland, and it's France.
It's France, yeah. And France is maybe the one that you might disagree with, Raoul.
Well, it's not up to me, it's up to you. We'll have that conversation next week. Thank you to Stephen Ferris. We will have Declan Marin from Ladbrokes with us in just a second. So Declan Marin from Ladbrokes has joined us. Declan, you're very welcome.
Cheers,
good to see you. Lots of interest, growing interest, I think, in the markets for the Six Nations.
Very much. Been a busy few weeks now as we build up to it. England particularly been popular.
Really?
So worth mentioning right off the top. Yeah. The last couple of weeks, you can see the growing interest in England.
And yet, lots of people seem to be talking. I mean, Ireland are obvious and favourites and odds on at that. But when you look at around and listen to others, they're talking about Wales as well.
A lot of buzz for Wales. I think it's the value in the betting that sort of makes them stand out. You probably have a few question marks over the team, but at the betting, they're not that skinny compared to the top 3. I suppose there's top 3 is how you can separate it at the moment with the depth in the teams. And Wales certainly look the most appealing of the 3 at the moment in the betting.
We can take a look at the outright betting and try and figure out a way through this one. Ireland, I just when you consider Ireland have England up first and then Wales away at the end, I just struggle that that's good value. Yeah, it is.
It really isn't, and I think that's why we're seeing so much support for the 2 in behind. You tend to just try and find the little bit of value. The further you go down, it looks looks like a very much a three-team tournament.
Do you know what? I just still can't get over, and I'm old school. Looking at France at 20-1 to win the Six Nations is beyond my comprehension. But it's a reflection of where they are.
It is. They're constantly in transition.
It's the longest transition ever. Yeah.
Pretty much. And with the new guys coming through, I think it's fair to say they're not up there with the big boys at the moment, and probably rightly priced up at about 20-1.
Okay, well, move from winner to Grand Slam out. What's the market looking like for Grand Slam?
The Grand Slams are interesting because it really does show how competitive each game is going to be, I think. You've got no Grand Slam, the odds-on price at 8-11. Ireland are 2-1, England 10-1, Wales 14-1, France 40-1, Scotland 50, and Italy a high enough price. So when we were talking to Stephen earlier, and you heard him about momentum, it's one of those. If Wales get on a roll, that 14-1 might look interesting value if they can manage to win their own opening two. Very much, and actually it would be our biggest loser as it stands at the moment. Wales in the Grand Slam. I think it's just, again, it's the price is appealing. I'd have my doubts that Wales have it in them, although mind you, looking at the fixture list, you'd have to say they've been done a favour in a way there. Should be very, very competitive. You'd be happy enough, I think, taking your 14-1 price on that at the moment.
If you're looking at anything, that's the one for me. What about top try scorer in the tournament? Because I think that one always gets people interested in terms of where they feel there is a bit of value. Because somebody can come from left field. Jacob Stockdale 7-2, not a massive surprise. Question for me is whether anybody, no matter how good they are, can keep that level of momentum going.
Yeah, 7-2 actually a limited time boost. You may get on before we finish recording here. Be quick about it. 7-2 out to 6-1 in our Irish shops at the moment, and I think online as well, about Jacob Stockdale. So nearly double in price there, out to 6-1 if you get on quickly enough. But no doubt he's going to be one of the most popular bets. You've got the likes of, as you can see, Johnny May in there at 7-1, Chris Ashton 8-1, and really it's again about the top teams, how they're going to go. I thought Stuart Hogg, who's not listed here, is very interesting as well, 16-1. He's always good for a few.
Absolutely. That sounds like a reasonable price. And what about Liam Williams? Because I have a sense Liam Williams is going to have a big year. Have we a number there?
He does. He's also in about 16-1 at the moment, Liam Williams. So yeah, I could see where you're going with that.
I've gone very Welsh. I can feel myself going very Welsh. I'm not quite sure why, but I have gone very Welsh.
It's an interesting one just on this market as well for each of the individual matches at Ladbrokes in our Irish retail shops. We're going to double the odds on your winning first try score bets if they go on to score another try. So against Stockdale, I know last year cost us a fair few quid with that. He's one for when he goes for a penny, very much.
Yeah, very good. Okay, on the other end of the spectrum, the bottom two finish. It's pretty straightforward, is it, for a lot of people?
You would think so. I mean, surprisingly enough, England were competitive in that field last year, so you could maybe find a bit of an upset. At the moment, we've got Italy a massive odds-on price. Obviously, you'd expect them to finish bottom. And then France and Scotland, both can't be separated at 11-8. So it's going to be, you'd be looking pretty optimistically if you're going to go beyond that. Wales 7-2, England 7s, and Ireland good to see 50-1.
Yeah, I just feel if Scotland don't get off to a good start and they ship a few injuries, they could be in a bit more. I mean, they've come a long way down the road, but they don't have that depth.
They do need to be improving, I suppose, on what they've done already. Last tournament, they'll be happy enough to have had some big victories, although teetered against Italy and just relatively poor away as well. It looks like their home games are going to be the one they favour, but they need to be either equaling or, I mean, they're an exciting team. They've got some really good players coming through. They just really need to kick on, I think. Okay,
you've always got some interesting markets, and the one that you wanted to bring to everybody's attention is the team to score most points against Ireland market.
Yeah, it's a fascinating market. I was looking at last year's results, and obviously Italy is the one where Ireland go absolutely mad and get their own. But in terms of shipping them, Wales would have stuck quite a few passes. 2-1 about Wales, 9-4 Scotland, 5-2 England. So interesting to see England that far out there. You would have thought that it'll be close enough, so there shouldn't be too many tries in that game. France are at 6-1 though, which I thought wasn't bad. Again, you thought it was fairly close. There's a wild card element to France. They're going to get a few scalps in this tournament at some stage. You feel they'll be targeting Ireland after what happened to them in France last time with the drop goal that Stephen mentioned earlier on. So I wouldn't be totally blown away if that 6-1 looks good value.
Okay, lots of markets, lots of opportunities, and maybe the one to stay away from my perspective is the outright. There seems to be some opportunities for some value elsewhere. Let's have a quick kick through the three games this weekend, and we had them in the background there when Stephen was talking. But let's look at the France-Wales game first.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see there, it's very, very even, which is I must say I'm a little bit surprised. I thought Wales are good value for this game, actually. So you're talking even money Wales, even money France, 18-1 the draw. I think Stephen was favouring France with his selection. I just think, I mean, Warren Gatland's last Six Nations tournament, he's very much already said they win this game. They're in good stead for the tournament. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Wales absolutely firing and get done maybe later on in the tournament. But even money for me, looking at that team at the moment, I think they're very, very strong contenders. I think there are a lot of people's dark horses for this tournament. And
yeah, I'm with you, but Stephen Ferris has 35 international caps, so
that's
probably
fair enough.
Better to go with Stephen Ferris.
So we go with France.
Let's have a look then at Scotland initially.
Yeah, no surprise there, really.
One-sided. I guess the issue there is on the handicap, right?
Very much. You're going to find more value, I'd imagine, by going online and going to the alternative handicaps, because it's, what do we say, there's about 25 points in that. You can get Scotland minus 28 at 6-5 or minus 31 at 8-5. So that's the way to find a little bit more value in this sort of alternative handicap markets. I'd be a little bit hesitant just off the game in Italy last year, where it was sort of late on. They needed a bit of a rally, but then again in Murrayfield they should do it fairly handily. I think the 25.
I just can't see Scotland win by 25 points, but
really,
I've been wrong numerous times before, and I will be wrong well into the future. And finally, then the big one of the weekend for everybody: Ireland against England. How are you seeing this one?
It must be the shortest we've been off the top of my head in recent history when playing England, even at home, 2-7. Pretty astonishing. 9 points or 8 points now in a handicap at evens.
That's teetered between 8 and 9.
It looks workable. That for me, looking at this game, a bit like last time, there should be about a kick in it. You can get Ireland between 1 to 10 points at about 9-5, which for me kind of covers your bases. I don't think either team will play away, but you know, the heart says Ireland, obviously, but that 3-1 looks very advertised about England. I don't think too many punters would disagree with that, to be fair. Okay, well, we're running out of time. Is there anything else you want to bring to everybody's attention before we wrap it up? Just one more on the Triple Crown market, actually. A lot of popular bets around the Grand Slam for Wales. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go well enough in the Triple Crown. Again, the fixtures suit them nicely. They've got to go to Murrayfield, but they're hosting both Ireland and England in Cardiff. So 6-1 for Wales on the Triple Crown. Looks very, very interesting as well. All right, well, lots to look forward to over the weekend, lots to look forward to over the coming weeks and indeed couple of months. And we look forward to your company. My thanks to Declan, my thanks to Stephen a little bit earlier on. And we will see you next week at the Breakdown on the Racing Post.